Hello and welcome to K News. This is Hardik Trivedi. Let's have a look what is happening in India and in the world. The economy of the 19-country Eurozone shrank by a devastating 12.1% during the second quarter from the quarter before as coronavirus lockdowns froze business and consumer activity. It was the largest drop on record. Spain, which suffered a severe virus outbreak that devastated its tourism industry, was the hardest hit with an 18.5% drop. Italy and Portugal were also hard hit, but no country escaped. It was the biggest decline since the records started in 1995. The decline in Europe compares to a 9.5% quarter-on-quarter decline for the United States. European governments are countering the downturn with massive stimulus measures at the national and European Union level. EU lenders have agreed on a 750 billion euro recovery fund backed by common borrowing to support the recovery from 2021. The European Central Bank is pumping 1.35 trillion euros in newly printed money into the economy through bond purchases, a step which helps keep borrowing costs low. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was meeting later Friday with the leaders of the Spain's regions to discuss how to rebuild the economy and where to deploy billions of euros in European Union aid for recovery. In France, the startling plunge of 13.8% in April-June from the previous 3-month period also starkly illustrated the punishing economic cost of its 2-month lockdown. China on Friday said its fully operational homemade Beidou navigation satellite system is ready to provide global services, joining an elite group providing space-based systems comprising the US's GPS, Russia's GLONASS, and European Union's Galileo. Experts told Chinese state media that the completion of Beidou 3 was due to the fact that core technologies cannot be bought or bagged from other countries. More than 100 countries, including Pakistan and countries part of Belt and Road Initiative, are already using the system. Over 3 lakh scientists, engineers and technicians from more than 400 domestic institutes, universities and enterprises have been involved in Beidou's development since the 1990s, official media reported Friday after President Xi Jinping commissioned the system at a ceremony held at the Great Wall of the People. The system was named Beidou after the Chinese team for Big Dipper constellation. By the end of 2019 in the Chinese mainland, more than 6.5 million road vehicles, 40,000 postal and express delivery vehicles, 80,000 buses in 36 major cities, 3,200 inland navigation facilities, and 2,900 marine navigation facilities had adopted the BDS, forming the world's largest dynamic monitoring system for road vehicles, the tabloid said in a report on Friday. China's territorial claims in Bhutan and the recent incursion into Indian land are indicative of their intentions, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said on Thursday, adding that Beijing under President Xi Jinping was trying to find out whether other countries are going to push back. China recently staked claim over the Sektang Wildlife Sanctuary in Bhutan at the Global Environment Facility Council and opposed funding to the project. I think the actions are entirely consistent with what they have been signaling to the world for decades. You might even argue since 1989, but certainly since General Secretary Xi Jinping came to power, Pompeo told members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee during a congressional hearing on Thursday. The Secretary of State said China has the desire to expand its power and reach. They talk about bringing socialism with Chinese characteristics to the world. Claims that they have now made for real estate in Bhutan. The incursion took place in India. These are indicative of Chinese intentions, and they are probing the world to see if we are going to stand up for their threats and their bullying, Pompeo said. I am more confident than I was even a year ago that the world is prepared to do that. There is a lot more work to do and we need to be serious about it, said the top American diplomat. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani dashed hopes Friday for a start to negotiations with Taliban insurgents, announcing the final 400 Taliban prisoners whose release is a prerequisite to start talks will remain jailed. The announcement frustrates US efforts to find an end to Afghanistan's years of relentless war. Addressing the nation on the Muslim holy day of Eid, Ghani said the 400 Taliban are convicted of crimes he has no authority to forgive. Ghani's announcement was certain to delay the start of negotiations between the warring sides and frustrate Washington's efforts to bring an early end to hostilities. Even as they scale down their presence in Afghanistan, it also comes at the start of the 3-day ceasefire announced by the Taliban for the Eid holidays. The prisoner releases were part of a deal the United States signed in February with the Taliban aimed at ending Afghanistan's endless wars and sending US troops home after nearly 20 years in Afghanistan, ending America's longest war. The deal, touted at the time as Afghanistan's best chance at peace in 4 decades, called for the Afghan government to free 5,000 Taliban held in jails across the country and the Taliban to free 1,000 government and military personnel. The releases were to be a sign of goodwill and prerequisite to the start of negotiations between the warring sides. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said Friday his country will not negotiate with the United States because America would only use talks for propaganda purposes. The Trump administration has said it is willing to talk with Iran with no preconditions, but the US will continue its campaign for pressure against the Islamic Republic. Trump unilaterally withdrew America's the nuclear accord between Iran and Western powers in May 2018. Iran after responded by slowly abandoning nearly every aspect of the agreement, though it still allows UN inspectors access to its nuclear sites. Trump has maintained that the deal needs to be renegotiated because it did not address Iran's ballistic missile program or its involvement in regional conflicts. The other signatories to the nuclear deal, Germany, France, Britain, China and Russia, have been struggling to keep it alive. Khamenei said the US wants Iran to give up its nuclear program, defense facilities and regional authority at the negotiating table. A sharp rise in subsidized gasoline prices led to 4 days of unrest in cities and towns across Iran in November, in which Amnesty International said more than 300 people were killed in clashes with police and security forces. Tehran has yet to release any official statistics about the scale of the unrest, though in June, government acknowledged that security forces shot and killed protesters. A lawmaker said 230 people were killed in the anti-government protest. alleging that the rate of horse trading has increased after the date of announcement of assembly session from August 14. Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has now moved his MLAs to Jaisalmer, 550 kilometers from the state capital Jaipur. The MLAs had been camping at a hotel outside Jaipur since July 13 after Sachin Pilot and 18 other Congress MLAs rebelled against the government, triggering the political crisis. Planes have been hired to take the legislators to the new destination. The MLAs are being moved in batches. CM Gehlot on Thursday indicated that he will seek a confidence vote when the assembly convenes next fortnight and claimed that the money offered to the MLAs to switch sides had increased sharply ahead of the session. He added that rebels who have not accepted the money should return to the party fold. The floor test will happen. We are going to the assembly. The BAC decides this, he told reporters, referring to the Assembly's Business Advisory Committee. He said the House will also discuss the coronavirus pandemic and the state's economy after the lockdown. Gehlot said earlier the rate was rupees 10 crore as the first installment and rupees 15 crore as the second. Gehlot said if the dissident MLAs had any complaints, they should have gone to the AICC office instead of keeping away. The BJP has issued legal notices to Siddaramaiah and DK Shivakumar, Congress leaders in Karnataka, for what the ruling party said were comments harming its reputation by alleging irregularities in the management of the coronavirus pandemic in the state. The two senior Congress leaders had last week alleged a rupees 2,000 crore plus scam in purchase of COVID-19 related equipment and demanded a judicial probe into the matter. Siddaramaiah, the leader of opposition in Karnataka Assembly and Congress's State Unit President DK Shivakumar, addressed a press conference claiming that the state government had spent rupees 4,100 crore till date to combat the pandemic. They had alleged that more than rupees 2,000 crore of the amount spent had been siphoned off through corrupt practices by inflating the prices of equipment like ventilators, PPE kits, sanitizers, gloves and other material. They also released some documents which they said showed that material had been procured at artificially high prices. The B.S. Yediyurappa-led BJP government hit back, saying the allegations were false and baseless. Ravi Kumaran, the BJP's General Secretary in Karnataka, slapped the notices on Thursday through a lawyer. It's time for a short break. We'll join you in a short while.
వేసవి అవుతుంది fun with the cooler number one. ఇక చేసుకో more fun ఉంటే cooler number one. ఇక don't run from the sun ఉంటే Kenstar number one. पहली नजर हो गया मैं दीवाना 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 इतना सुंदर जैसे कोई सपना सुहाना मैं दीवाना दीवाना
कचारिया टाइल्स, जो देखे वो दीवाना।
Welcome back to K News and thank you for watching. Let's continue the streak of news. Domestic equity benchmark Sensex dropped 129 points on Friday, tracking losses in index heavyweights Reliance Industries and HDFC Twins amid weak cues from global markets. The BSE Sensex ended 129 points lower at 37,606, while the NSE Nifty fell 28 points to 11,073. Reliance Industries was the top loser on the Sensex chart, shedding around 2% as investors began booking profits at higher levels. The company on Thursday reported a record net profit of rupees 13,248 crore for the June quarter after a one-time gain from stake sale as well as bumper telecom revenues cushioned COVID-19 hit earnings from refining, petrochemicals and retail segments. HDFC Bank, Asian Paints, Kotak Bank, Bajaj Auto and HDFC were among the laggards. On the other hand, Sun Pharma, Mahindra and Mahindra, HCL Technology, Axis Bank finished higher. Shares of SBI surged around 3% after the lender posted an 81% spike in standalone net profit at rupees 4,100 crore for the first quarter of the current fiscal. Bourses in Hong Kong, Tokyo and Seoul settled in the red, while Shanghai finished with gains. Stock exchanges in Europe were trading with the marginal gains in early deals. Global oil benchmark Brent crude was trading 0.51% higher at US dollars 43.47 per barrel. The Jammu and Kashmir administration on Friday extended the detention of PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti by another 3 months under the stringent Public Safety Act. Mufti, among others, had been taken into preventive custody barely hours before the central revoked the special status of Jammu and Kashmir on August 5 last year. The state was subsequently divided into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. The detention order of the former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister was scheduled to lapse on August 5, 2020. Mufti is the only politician currently who is still detained under the PSA. She will continue to remain under detention for another 3 months at her official residence, which had earlier been declared a subsidiary jail. The order issued by the Home Department of the government said a number of other prominent politicians, including two former chief ministers, Farooq Abdullah and his son Omar Abdullah, have been released from custody. The politician leaders are arrested last year, hours after the centre proposed the revocation of Article 370. Jammu and Kashmir's People's Conference leaders Sajjad Lone and Imran Ansari were also arrested. Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh has ordered a magisterial inquiry for Divisional Commissioner Jalandhar to the suspicious deaths of 21 people, allegedly due to consumption of spurious liquor in Amritsar, Batala and Taran. One person is reported to be critical in the suspected Hooch tragedy. The Chief Minister has given Commissioner Jalandhar Division the liberty to co-opt any civil or police officer or any expert to facilitate the expeditious conduct of the inquiry. He has promised strict action against anyone found complicit in the case, in which a woman has so far been arrested. Taking immediate and serious note of the case, Captain Amrinder also directed the police to launch a search operation to crack down on any suspicious liquor manufacturing units that may be operating in the state. The Director General of Police Punjab, Dinkar Gupta, said the first 5 deaths were reported from villages Muchal and Tangra in Tarsikka police station limits in Amritsar rural on the night of June 29. On the evening of June 30, 2 more persons died in suspicious circumstances at Muchal, while 1 person was hospitalized in critical condition and later succumbed at Shri Guru Ram Das Hospital. Later, 2 more deaths were reported from village Muchal, while another 2 people reportedly died in Batala city, also due to spurious liquor consumption. Police have arrested Balwinder Kaur, a resident of Muchal, under Section 304 of the IPC, Section 61 by 1 by 14 of the Excise Act. Further investigations are in progress by the SIT constituted by SSP Amritsar Rural, from where the first cases were reported. The post-mortem of 4 persons will be conducted today to ascertain the exact cause of the deaths. The Gujarat High Court on Friday struck down a clause in a state government resolution which asked self-finance schools not to collect fees while they remain closed. The GR by the State Education Department was issued on July 16 and it was challenged in High Court by Federation of Self-Finance Schools, which claimed they were conducting online classes since June and staff and teachers' salaries had to be paid. On Friday, the bench set aside that particular clause in the GR and directed the government and school federation to sit together and find an amicable solution on the fee issue. While hearing the petition earlier on Thursday, a division bench comprising Chief Justice Vikram Nath and Justice J.B. Pardiwala has questioned the state government's logic behind such a directive to schools. Since other PILs are also linked with this petition, it is expected that a detailed order will be issued soon. Schools had stopped online classes for 3 days after the GR came, but then restarted it, saying they would abide by the High Court order. A class 10 student in Tamil Nadu's Cuddalore district died on suicide on Wednesday night, as his father could not buy him a smartphone to use for online classes being held by his school amid the coronavirus lockdown. Authorities say the 14-year-old boy who studied at the Vallalar High School near the town of Pannuth, killing himself at his home on Wednesday night. In his complaint, the boy's father, Vijay Kumar, believed to be a cashew farmer, said, moving to class 10, my son asked for a mobile phone to online classes. I told him I will get him after I got cash from my cashew, but he turned angry. Many poor families have suffered due to a lack of income, salary cuts, and even job losses as a result of coronavirus lockdown that has been in place since March 25. The state government has been providing only free ration and a payment of rupees 1000 per month, a mere amount, particularly for those living in cities and urban centers. In addition to these hardships, with private schools opting for online classes, academicians have repeatedly warned the ruling AIDMK about digital divide affecting students from poor families who may have limited access to the internet and gadgets. Students appearing for final year exams in colleges and higher education institutions left pending since March because of the coronavirus lockdown must not think the exams will be postponed again because of the ongoing Supreme Court hearing, the UGC said Friday. Students should continue to prepare for the examinations. Students should not be under the impression that examinations will be stayed because of the Supreme Court hearing. The UGC, which is charged with coordination, determination and maintenance of standards of higher education, said in court, declining to pass any final order on a clutch of petitions challenging the UGC's decision to hold final year exams in September. The top court today adjourned its hearing till August 10. Appearing for one of the petitioners, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, argued today that the UGC's guideline to hold the exams, which include the option to hold them online, were arbitrary. Mr. Singhvi pointed out that some of the universities lacked basic IT infrastructure, and it was therefore not feasible to uniformly conduct online examinations. Optional exam is problematic. If someone cannot appear and is given a letter option, it will create chaos, he said, to which the court said, but it is for the benefit of the students. Mr. Singhvi argued heavens will not fall if exams are cancelled, and referred to sanctions of the Disaster Management Act that allows state governments to take decisions in this regard. The new Education Policy 2020 unveiled by the Government of India is more important than the procurement of Rafale fighter planes. But there are concerns of its proper implementation, Shiv Sena said in its mouthpiece Samna on Thursday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi did a good job. He changed the country's educational policy completely. This change occurred after 34 years. This is more important than a Rafale planes from France. We call the new education policy important as the country has now got the Ministry of Education. So now the country will get an education minister. If a person is knowledgeable in education sector, then let him become education minister. Many people who do not have finance related information or who do not have health related information, often those ministries were given to those who did not good to work there. An editorial read in Samna. The Shiv Sena welcomed the policy for its focus on education up to class 5th in the mother tongue, but expressed reservation whether this will only be limited to government schools and not spared to private schools run by missionaries and others. One thing is good, that education up to the 5th grade is kept in the mother tongue. The demand for education in the mother tongue was constantly being made by the Sangh Parivar. The only question is that this mother tongue should not be limited to education only in government schools. There are English medium schools, convent schools of missionaries, central schools, and how will we implement this mother tongue education rule in the context of international schools? The editorial read. That's all for now. Keep watching K News. This is Hardik Trivedi taking your leave. Be alert, be positive, be safe.